everybody. This is a collaborative review of a book that has yet to be released, but is coming out next week. So I think I can join with Alan in saying you guys should definitely pre-order this. That is Age of Ash by Daniel Abraham. Alan, do you still have the book close? I don't have my book by.
I do. First of all, I was trying to figure out what you're saying. It doesn't come out next week temporally where we are currently.
Correct.
It comes out next week from when you drop this. I was
That's
like,
right.
Andy, that's
We
not
are time traveling.
Boom, Age of Ash.
You actually got a physical copy. I got an ebook this time around. So that's some good eye candy. So Daniel Abraham, we come in at different aspects to this. You have read 1.5 series that he has done by himself.
I'm currently on audio rereading the first book of Dagger and Coin so that I can continue that series.
You read the seasons, but you didn't read.
I read Long Price Quartet, but have not finished
Long Price Quartet.
Dagger and Coin. Correct.
In my head, it's always seasons, just because
it is because it's summer, winter, autumn, and spring.
Yep. My only contact with him is his co-author work in The Expanse, which is obviously a totally different genre in sci-fi, but I really enjoy it. And I think my understanding of that pairing is he writes most of it, and the other half is more sort of conceptual. But
so what I read is that for it to be done, like for them to do it, so it's Ty Frank's world, right? It's Ty Frank's world. They'd known each other. There was a big interview about him, but it's Ty Frank's world, and that was initially going to be the thing. But Ty Frank insisted on being able to write more of it, so they cut it down the middle. So Abraham does half, and Frank does half of it. Do
they do it by perspective? I'll look up the article. I'm sure
I think they do it by perspective. So I think some of those characters are Abraham's, some of them are Frank's.
That works really well then, because that makes sense why those characters are so distinct, even in their thinking. Yeah. Anyway,
I haven't read it yet.
This is my first Daniel Abraham solo read, which I think will affect how we think about this book.
It will affect everything you think about this book.
So let's get to the book itself. Age of Ash. How do you pronounce the city? Kithamar? Is that what you say in your head?
Yeah. I would say Kithamar.
So it's the first in the Kithamar trilogy, and the whole idea, as I understanding of this trilogy, is there are some major events that happen, particularly with the ruling prince in this world in a space of 1.5 to 2 years.
So the beginning of the book starts with a funeral.
The beginning of the book kind of tells you, the prologue kind of tells you, these are the big things that are going to happen, which normally I hate. And I'm like, well, if I know it's going to happen, whatever. Yeah. But actually it works really well in this book. But through these 3 books, by going through different perspectives, we're going to learn more. And only in the end will you really understand the full story, which I'll be honest, intrigued me. I was excited, but also very skeptical. So Alan, if you can remember going back, how did you feel going into it with that knowledge?
I think that's cool. I like that. First of all, this book's definitely going to have to stretch past where this book ends. Yeah. You know what I mean? It has to, we didn't cover everything.
Yeah, it'll be like this and then this. And
there'll be overlapping. Yeah, it'll be overlapping timelines. Yeah. Yep. So I think that's cool. It can be done poorly when you're seeing a lot of the stuff rehashed. When you're seeing, so it's done poorly when you are just seeing the exact same events from a different perspective.
Yeah.
It's done well when the new perspective is on the fringe of the same events, but there's not a ton of crossover with character interactions. That's when it's done well. When it's just this person was with this main character the entire time, we're just going to retell it from the other person's perspective. That
reminds me a movie a couple years ago called Vantage Point. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was that idea of it's a one event and you see it from different perspectives. And I remember by the 3rd time I was like, this is so boring.
Yeah,
I know what's happening. So this book is not like that.
No, it's not.
In this book, obviously this is the only one we have, Age of Ash. You follow primarily 2 young women, Alice and
Samish,
which I love. I will say both of them, I think, knock home run of characters. Very different. It's not just 2 girls. They both have very different personalities and styles and motivations, and they're very believable. And I felt pretty unique in what they capture, especially I don't think it's too much to say because it's early in the book. Samish has a big crush on Alice.
Yeah. It's from the very first time you see Sam.
Yeah, I think it's like the first paragraph that you read
of her first perspective. Correct.
But it's not. It's done in like a very respectable. Like it's not a YA like thing. Like it is a crush, and she does dumb stuff because of it.
Anyone who has ever liked someone and tried to change themselves because you think that this person's going to like that will understand and empathize with Samish.
Yep. So Samish has that great unique angle, and then Alice has a unique angle of tragedy. And I don't want to say exactly the tragedy, because for me it was a big surprise.
You didn't read the back of the book.
I didn't. That's true. Is it on the back of the book?
It is. Which is why I do not have a problem spoiling anything that's on the freaking back of the book.
Oh, that's such a bummer.
I mean, the thing is, it didn't bother me. Like, it didn't bother me that it didn't bother me that I knew going in. Like, It's not. I think I understand that people who didn't know are like, yeah, that's cool. If you do know, I did not enjoy the book any less because of it. It's just like.
I think that's true. It was a very memorable moment for me when I read it and was like, oh, wait, what?
It's really the how.
Real, it was real.
It's like, well, how? How is the event going to take place? Essentially, if this book had been a movie, you would have known from the trailer, because they can't talk about what the book's about.
Right.
Without, because the inciting incident, I call it.
Yep. I guess that's true. So, okay, we'll spoil what I talk about. Alice's brother gets killed in a very mysterious way that we don't understand why, how, what he was into to get killed. And Alice is really about trying to figure that out. And that's really like the basis of this book.
Yeah. Without that, they're really that's the driving factor for the entire book is Alice trying to find out who killed her brother and why. Yep.
And it's really it's a simple premise that gets very complicated. Not quickly. It slowly gains complicated layers, which again, I'll just come out and say this. My thought of the book is it is promising. It hasn't delivered on much yet, but I really want to read the second book. I gave it 3 stars, and that seems a little harsh when I say it out loud, but I could easily see me changing that to 4 or even 5 stars if some of these things pay off. But it is definitely a slow burn. Is that fair, Alan?
Yes. Okay, so I'm glad we're getting this right off the bat. Yep. When I first read Shadow and Summer, first book of the Long Press Quartet, which is now one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read book 3 of that series, went back and changed both book 1 and 2 to 5 stars, because what Daniel Abraham does is there is zero doubt that Daniel Abraham does not know what is happening through the entire series from the first time he writes a word in the first page. And because of this read very much like a first book in a Daniel Abraham series. The Dragon's Path is slow, and Shadow and Summer is slow, both of them. This is just what he does, because he is laying the groundwork for the payoff we're going to get later. Okay. The payoffs are so rewarding because we care so much, because you touched on what he does excellently, which is characters and their relationships with each other. Mm-hmm. Absolutely fantastic. So he's setting this up, laying this groundwork, and it is slow. And what I think the problem is if they're marketing as, one of the authors of The Expanse, if people are coming in here expecting Leviathan Wakes, they're going to get hit in the face.
It's definitely not any kind of space opera-y feel at all.
Yeah. And so that the reason that I rate it higher, I didn't give 5 stars either. I gave it 4.5 just because. But the thing is,
because you're trying not to be a 5-star strumpet.
It's just because it is slow. And though I think Samish and Alice are great characters and the work is done fantastically, I don't like Alice. I don't like her. Yeah. I don't like her. I love Samish, but I don't like Alice. Yeah. And same thing with the first book of Dagger and Coin. There's one character that's just fantastic. Mm-hmm. And then the others are just like, okay, we're going to get there. So it is, I know what he is doing. I trust his process. I know that when it's over, I know that when that third book comes out, even after the second one, I'm going to immediately want to go back and reread the first one just to see, how do these pieces connect? Yeah. This is just what he does. So this is just what Abraham does. The first books are slow. I haven't read Leviathan Wakes, but the first books of his solo series that I have read are slow character building burns.
Yeah, and I think the cool part about that, I don't know if you read this in the introduction, or if it's even in some arcs don't have the introduction yet.
Do you have the map? I don't have the map. I had to take a picture of it.
I didn't have the map. In fact, my Kindle edition like couldn't figure out the chapters, so it was one of those things where my chapters were like 4 hours long, just because it couldn't like. Anyway, this is
what my chapters are. Hold on. That's what my chapters say.
Oh, yeah, mine look exactly like that, just like gibberish. It looks almost like
there's going to be a picture there. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah. Anyway, in the introduction, it says this is an old project that he dusted off and like wanted to like bring to light, which I think is cool because
I don't have that introduction.
You got to be special like me and get yours through NetGalley, I guess. I
have the Kindle one too. I better go look.
Maybe it's in the acknowledgments. Check the back. Maybe it's in the back. But I think it's cool because this is definitely a book I think that wouldn't get published from an unknown author, but it's a guy who has some clout. And so he can be like, no, trust me, my name will sell the copies and this will be worth it in the long run, which like doesn't always happen in the fantasy genre.
Yeah, 100%. Like he has earned, like the Expanse has given him, probably given him carte blanche.
Blank check for his next series.
Do what he needs to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Which
is
great.
awesome.
Yeah.
Sometimes that gets bad, but I think hopefully that won't happen this time around.
It's criminally underrated. Like his character writing is so freaking good. Like it's just so good.
Well, about that character writing. One, character in this book is definitely the city itself.
Kithamar. This is the most evocative setting of any of the three books, of any of the three series that I've read. Okay. Kithamar is 100% like a living, breathing, like off the page character. It's gross. That's another reason. It's so fantastically done, but I don't like it. Kithamar's gross. Kithamar's gross. The language he uses to describe Kithamar's gross while still being beautiful.
The places we are in Kithamar. Correct. I think probably in the later books when we get to like nobles or whatever, I think that's part of the commentary of this book because
you're right.
Samish and Alish are in like the slums, right? Like they're literally in a place where like they expect to die young. Yeah, like it's cold outside and they're literally like sleeping outside if they can't find a place. Both of them this whole book are like, we need to do this, but also I need a couple coppers so I can have a room. Yeah. Like it's happening all the time. And yeah, the places where they are
so gross.
The law enforcement abuses them. Like it's a community that is harsh, but also looks out for each other. Like there is this really interesting dynamic that he's able to weave into this story and like neighborhood identity, even in the city.
Identity is 100% like one of the themes that's in here. Like identity, not just like who you are as a person, because these girls are teens, they're late teens, but also like you said, neighborhood identity. Hey, I'm Long Hill.
Yep. It's like maybe that's just, we'll talk more about that maybe in the spoiler section if we have some.
If we hit any spoilers, you can always edit them out.
That's a good point. Because there's big decisions that are made, and that the rationale is this is my home. It's Long Hill. I'm gonna stay here.
And they don't like anyone who gets uppity and thinks that they're like all of a sudden they go spend a bunch of time outside of Long Hill and they dress really nice and like they're like, look at that person, doesn't understand where their roots are.
Yep.
How dare they?
And that's why it's so really we only have, as we said, like two main characters and then a little bit of cast around them. But it doesn't feel like an isolated story because the constant sort of, I don't know, presence of this city and neighborhood around it, which is a really good balancing act. Because like just two girls looking for killers in a city could get boring with a lesser author. But this book is definitely, I say slow, but it is not boring. I want to make a distinction for people.
Correct.
I really feel strongly about that.
I agree. Like Shadow and Summer's the same way. So is the other book. But yeah, like it's not like a revenge story. Figure out who did. Like that's not new. Like that's basic. But what he does with it is what makes it special. And these characters and their relationships and their arc, like they have their character growth, like how they are different at the end of this book from where they are at the beginning is really, really good.
Yeah, there's really good arcs, and because it takes place in about a year and a half?
It's a year, yeah, because it starts with it starts with the funeral, which is a year after, because then it warps back a year in time about why that prince only lived for a year.
Yep, that's right. That's right. So it's in a space of a year, but that's long enough for like some pretty major changes to take place. So I don't think we can say too much more, except people should buy this book and read it for a lot of the reasons we said, right? Like characters work is great, really good writing. The city is like really alive in this book, and like this kind of book is not always published in sci-fi publishing.
100% agree. Yeah,
we should read it. So and pre-ordering does a huge bit for the book itself. So be sure to pre-order that. Alan, any final words before we jump into spoiler territory?
Yeah. So if you are someone who has ever lost a loved one, or you have ever experienced like grief to the point of you can't even speak, like grief that manifests as screaming and ugly crying, and like the way he handles grief and how it affects people, like how it affects communities, individuals, is just excellent. Like it's so, and how, you know, what it does to families. It is really good how he deals with grief in this book. I thought.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because that's the other side of the kind of three-sided coin. I don't know. The triangle of this book is like identity, grief, and then sort of underlining it all, I think, is like this question of kind of the economic question of like opportunity and the abuse of the powerful. That's kind of the three main themes as I read it through. And I think it's great. Highly would recommend. Even though I'd give it 3 stars, I think that's just
I can't wait to see you switch it to 5 once we read
foundation. I hope it happens, because there are a lot of things laid down that
I do too. I can't wait to see where it goes. I'm just like, what is gonna happen? Like we gotta go to spoilers, because
and that's a perfect segue. We're going to spoilers. Okay, so do you have an idea where you want to start with this, or you want me to ask you questions? Spoilers?
You can ask me questions. The one thing that I was just gonna say is that where I want to see where it goes, there's a scene missing from the end, Andy. The bad guy doesn't notice that his thing's been taken, and then you don't ever see what happens after that. We're missing the scene where he flips out, or what he's going to do to get it back. There's always a scene that follows that. And I was waiting, finishing. I'm like, where's that scene? Where's that scene? It wasn't there. So,
well, because I think the last time we hear from him, it's like, and he realized something valuable was missing, right? Period. That's
it.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. You can't do that. So I'm waiting. Like where is this going to go? Because let me tell you, those people, they are not safe. They are not safe.
And we really it's really mysterious what this guy can do, because there's like this huge question of power at the end, like when there's that almost duel, but then it doesn't happen. And like, what does that mean? Like, there's not really clear. The only thing we see is like the disease that what's her name is able to do, the bronze woman the woman from the Bronze Coast.
Yes.
So the like magic or power or influence or whatever it is, we haven't seen, but we know that it's a priestess.
There. So she's a priestess of some other, because they did mention several priesthoods, and the Derek Brotherhood is the one that keeps the spirit of Kithamar going. Yep. And that was the creepiest thing, that it's not a dude just passing his soul down. That when Andromeda transferred and she saw that moment where he's like, and she saw what it really was. Like what it's just this like Lovecraftian like other thing. That
did you see that coming at all?
No. Like I just thought it was an evil guy. Like I didn't realize that it was actually it's literally some evil spirit that the city is built upon.
Yep.
And I need to know more of what it is, like how it got there. I think it has something to do with the water, because they're always like, the water's hungry.
The water's hungry.
Like I really like that. He never just lampshaded it, but they always they're afraid of the water.
Yeah, well, and I have to imagine it has something to do with the initial tension between the haunch and the Illatri.
Inslick.
because the Inslick were the ones that were the
They were the-
Wanderers, right? And then the Haunch were the ones who like basically conquered them. And
Yeah, so they're from the west where all the noble stuff is, and then they crossed and took over Long Hill, which was Inslick.
Yeah, so I wonder if it's like some ancient Ilslick.
I'm looking it up, so you can go ahead. I'll tell you when I find it.
I will say a criticism of this book that I was going to bring up in the non-spoiler section is like the names of things and places kind of, for the most part, except for things like Long Hill, kind of like slipped out of my mind. For some reason, things were hard to remember.
I couldn't remember. Yeah, I struggled with names other than Alice and Samish. And then Goro, I remember only because I played Mortal Kombat.
Goro!
Literally.
Okay. So that was my moment of the book, is when Andromache actually like sacrifices herself, and we have that reveal. And then from then on, it's like a he, she, and talks about like being pregnant before, and like thinks about like people as like brother, sister, lovers, like, because like in different lives it's different things, and it's like it's just a really unique, weird concept.
Yeah.
I would say one thing that I noticed consistently in this book from The Expanse is, because I'm assuming Abraham does this in The Expanse, is he writes things that aren't human really well.
Yes.
Like things that act and move and think not humanly. He gives us, he confuses us in our way of thinking with how it presents.
And he gives it like an alien-like quality, like something that it does it in Long Price Quartet also. Absolutely. Skidamar, the thing, it's like since Skiddamar's founding, the same spirit has occupied every single one of its kings over different periods of, like, the kings are alive, like they're alive, and then they literally surrender their soul to the Derek Brotherhood, not realizing they think they're continuing the line, like it's for some noble cause, not realizing that this freaking thing is like devouring them and body snatching them.
Yep.
And so what happened was someone who stole the first knife, Andy.
Yep.
Someone screwed it up. Someone botched
Well,
it.
and we have no idea what that knife is. Like, why can it do this? Why do they need that knife? How the heck did
one? So it
how
was
the heck did Darrow? But it didn't work, right? Didn't the second one not work?
Because he was a bastard. He wasn't actually of the line. So
was that confirmed why the knife didn't work? I know that's why, like, he couldn't put his soul in.
Yeah, that's why the knife didn't work. That's why it broke, even though they made a second one. Yeah. Okay. So
but that's the question. If they can just make another one, why is the one that they stole so important? You know
because
what I mean?
It's probably it's probably not as effective. We don't know what all goes into that. So we don't actually know everything that goes into it. I think not having the original weakened it, and the fact that the dude wasn't full blood made it, So for the first time in the city's history, they've got someone who is actually in control of his faculties on the throne. But we know he dies.
Mm-hmm.
The book starts with his funeral, but he's still alive at the end of this book. Mm-hmm. So, there is so much that has been set up. This book has set up a lot, because this book is really about Alice dealing with her grief, and like to the point of becoming her brother in order to keep him alive.
Yeah,
which is just it's both infuriating and sad and everything else just to watch, because you're like, what are you doing? She's using people and she's so self-absorbed, she can't even possibly understand why someone wouldn't want to help her. It's like, how dare you not want to help me?
Yep.
So that's this book dealing with that, but it's setting up so much in the background.
Oh yeah.
That these next books are going to deal with, and I cannot wait to find out some of these answers.
Yeah, and I don't even know like how much we're going to get about the weird like forest region and the like mysterious people or maybe not people that live there and their parts in it.
Oh, yeah, where Goro is, like across the river?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like where like trees move or something, or they appear to move. Yeah. The Bronze Coast, I think, is so interesting and obviously a huge part of this, but we don't really know much about that. Okay, there's so many questions. Okay, so I asked you this before we recorded, but now we're recording. You said very haughtily that you knew exactly who the next book was going to be from, and I want you to tell us who you think.
If I had to bet money, I would say it's Halev Carson, the dude who keeps sniffing around Andromeda, and she's always like, "Does he know something? Like, is he on her?" It's the prince's best friend.
Yeah,
and he is in the sanctum, and he steals one of those little red beads for some reason.
Yeah.
I guess just to show he could, but he is close to the prince, and he is definitely snooping around. There's no way he's just like, "What's going on?"
Yep.
He would be the perfect person to tell the next story. Other people have speculated maybe the princess, maybe Goro, who is obviously a god of some people on the Bronze Coast, because when she, what's her name, the Bronze Coast woman.
Yep, I don't know her name, but I know who you're talking about.
She originally is like, are you going to help me or not, Lord? And he's like, no, we don't use that name here.
Yeah,
just call me Goro, because I think if she said his like actual name, like Kithamar would know he's there. So it freaks me out every time I say Kithamar's a character. I'm actually spoiling the book for people. Kithamar is actually a character.
That's true.
So it's just so good, dude. Like I need to know what's going to happen, Andy.
It is kind of one of those books that the more I talk about it, the more I appreciate it, which makes me I'm hoping that will carry through to like when I read more of the books, that it'll just, rise higher and higher. Absolutely. Let's talk about the endings. Because I loved them. I loved the ending of Alice. After her grief, she actually turns into the woman that helps the kids find stuff along the beach.
She's the new Grey Linnet.
Yep. Love that. I thought that was a really fun turn, especially because, we were talking about identity earlier. Like, she lost her identity as Longhill, and then, came back and found it, both by her relationship with her mom, and then like actually doing something that helps the community. And then it's interesting because she has very deep Longhill roots, obviously, like a family. She had her brother, another sister that died early, and her mom. But Samish, who is also like Longhill to her core, but doesn't have as much roots, like realized that she could have another life and found kind of another family when she met the woman we can't remember her name of.
I'm going to find her name in a minute.
Bronze Coast Priestess. I'm just going to go with that. And she leaves at the end of the series and finds like this very fulfilling, at least it seems fulfilling, life.
I think she wants to be a priestess, like the bronze, like her. I think she wants to go and learn Sappha. Sappha's her name.
Sappha. So here's my question: do you think Samish and Sappha really like get out, and this is the end of their story in this book, or do you think they're going to come back later?
So Sappha's done, because Sappha needed to find her son.
Yep, who is not.
I think they're going to be back, because Sappha, I think they're going to be back. I mean,
I think Sappha will be a big part of the series, but not in like current day. I think they'll do a lot of flashback, or no, maybe not flashback, but like, we'll get a lot of the Bronze Coast when.
What about Samish? You think Samish going to come back?
I'm hoping she just has a happy ending. I'm hoping this is the last I hear of Samish. She goes and has a very happy.
Right. I hope that for Samish's sake too.
But I also know that usually when I want that for a character, it does not happen, or at least they have to do a lot of stuff to get there first.
I love how Samish develops her independence. Like, has decided, like, she ain't gonna treat me like this. Like, get out of here. And she becomes this braver, bolder, because her whole thing is no one notices her. That's why she's good at being a thief. And she develops her own identity rather than having this identity, which was Alice. Like, whatever Alice wanted her to be, that's what she was going to be.
Yeah.
And so I really like that. But the scene with Alice and her mom is so good, where, oh my gosh, it is so good when she finally it all just crashes down.
Well, and especially because we as the reader, even though we don't really like Alice, we have seen Darrow only really from Alice's perspective. So it's revelations to us too. Like, because it affects the plot. Like
Yes.
that Darrow is not this great guy, not super rich. He's not sneaky.
It was none of the things that he told Alice that he was.
Exactly.
She's like, look, hey, Alice, Darrow killed Darrow. Like, what do you want? No one killed him. He did it to himself. If it wasn't this time, it was going to happen eventually. This is the life that he led.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then she's like, it's not fair. And she's like, okay, who cares? What do you want? Like, look around. Did anybody say it was? Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Oh, that's great. And probably you, especially as a teacher, is going to appreciate. I think I love how he writes Samish, like her crush is not really on Alice, but on her idea of Alice.
100%.
Because like kids always do that, right? They fall in love and it's just like this idea of this person. That's why they never last.
Look,
and adults do that sometimes as well. It's not just kids.
Kids do it a lot of times.
Yeah. And I mean, especially in the digital world, obviously we do that all the time as well. But
it's excellent.
There's so much good stuff, but I wanted this to be a short video. So I'm going to end this here.
Cool. And
I'm very excited for Age of Ash to continue on. I don't know what the next book is going to be called. Age of Fire. I don't know. It could be, it could not be, because he does like his like consistent themed
yeah, that's true.
Names.
Yeah, I'm ready for the next book to be out. I want the series to be done so I can start recommending the series, because this, like, all I can say is like, look, it's paid off before in the past. It's a great character. It's a character story. Don't expect like a ton of answers or stuff to happen. Like, you're just going to have to be okay with not knowing for a while. But when it's finished, then I can be like, just wait.
Yeah.
It all pays off.
Final question, because you're in the middle of the Dagger and Coin. You've only read one book there, and now you've read one book in the Kithamar. Just in your head right now, I'm not going to like, nail you to the cross on this answer, but like, which of those two right now is more intriguing for you?
Oh, of the two of Dagger and Coin and Age of Ash?
Yep.
Age of Ash is a better book than Dragon's Path.
Okay.
Age of Ash is a better book than Dragon's Path, but Dragon's Path has a more fascinating character than Alice and Samish. Alice and Samish together outweigh the cast in general in Dragon's Path, but there's one character that is just like, can you do that in fantasy? Like, can you have characters behave this way? Yep. It's excellent. But I was bored in Dragon's Path for part of it.
Okay.
Petrick, who's finished it, if I didn't know that Daniel Abraham like is the guy, I would have struggled through it. So because part of Dragon's Path, I'm just like, I mean, okay, let's go ahead, let's go. But like, about halfway through the book, it's just like, all right, let's go. Here, I was never bored. So I think Age of Ash is a better book overall than Dragon's Path. All
right. Excellent. All right. So we're going to leave it there. Thanks, Alan, for coming on. Everybody go subscribe to Alan's channel. If you're watching me, you probably already have. But if you haven't, do that. And he has a full 17 minutes of his own on Age of Ash too. So if you want more Age of Ash content, he's got it. Thank you guys for watching. As always, first in, last out.